Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and it has been a long time since I've uttered those words. A long time since I've done a video for you guys. For that, I apologize, but I hope to be back and doing a lot more videos for you here this week and into this patch and hopefully into 1.0. So let's go ahead and get started with some new news for patch 0.92, and that is the RUNEMASTER, a new mastery for us to play in the mage class. And I am super excited for this because not only does it look like it has a lot of depth for us and a lot of diversity, but it also looks like it's even going to have new mechanics for us to work with and new play styles to try out, which is huge and really going to open up and separate it from a lot of the other classes, which I'm super excited for. I always love it when the masteries definitely feel not only different than the rest, but unique as a whole. So let's go ahead and dive into what we know so far about the RUNEMASTER for patch 0.92, which will be dropping in under a week on September 7th. So real quick, this patch is going to be bringing us a ton of stuff. A lot of it they're going to be covering over the next week, and I will try to cover most of that in our videos. But we have the RUNEMASTER. There's going to be a new base mage skill, ruin prisons and experimental items, one-shot and lost catches, a new crafting mechanic, and a peek at some new unique items. And then of course there will be more progress with their ongoing efforts to improve Last Epoch, such as revamping a lot of areas or doing visual overhauls or putting in some or replacing mobs and such to make them look and feel better. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Another big thing coming for this patch is localization. They will be adding in more languages to Last Epoch. Currently we only have English, but as of patch 0.9.2, they are going to be adding in simplified Chinese, French, German, Korean, Polish, Brazilian, Portuguese, Russian, and Spanish. So that'll obviously make a ton more players happy that don't speak English or that don't speak English well and don't want to translate everything using either a third-party app or whatever they've been using. And now they will be able to have the game actually in their language. And I also assume that this is also just the beginning. I do assume that possibly more languages will come as we get to 1.0 and beyond. And now let's discuss the RUNEMASTER. Of course, what we're all excited about since the reveal at Gamescom, the RUNEMASTER, the third and final mage mastery and the latest mastery to join the ranks. The RUNEMASTER provides the greatest opportunity for customization and skill expression to date with runic invocation. With the RUNEMASTER's mastery skill, runic invocation, you will passively gain runes each time you use an ability, 𝐁𝐸, Ra, and Gon. I assume I said those right, representing cold, fire, and lightning respectively. At any point you can invoke these runes using runic invocation to cast one of 40 different invocations based on which runes you have active and in what order they were generated. Just that alone tells me that depending on what elements you're using and which order you're casting them in is going to customize what abilities you can do. Is going to just open the doors for a ton of different things, and like they say here, 40 different possible invocations that you can do. The RUNEMASTER also has the ability to generate, benefit from, and consume runes with other abilities depending on how you choose to specialize them, and by specialize they mean spec the tree for those skills. These new passive trees continue to build upon our latest passive designs and threshold nodes, and even new mechanics such as dynamic defensive stats. So a lot going on here. Not only are you going to have a new skill and a mastery skill, the runic invocation, but on top of that, you're going to be able to interact that and synergize that with your other skills, depending on which runes you want to generate, depending on which elements you're using and in what order. So a lot of different layers going into that, and it already has my head spinning with like what kind of possibilities we're going to be able to come up with and how many new things we're going to be able to try. So hopefully it keeps us busy for the first few weeks of patch. As a savant weaving the power of raw arcane and fusing magic into offensive and protective words, we wanted to create a class which could deliver a large depth of mechanical gameplay. We felt this was a playstyle ripe for exploration within Last Epoch, one where in combat, each decision and ability use could impact the course of the fight individually and create large payoffs for active decisions on controlling enemies and choosing how to approach a fight. With this in mind, the RUNEMASTER offers several methods for aerial denial and enemy control with Frost Wall, Glyph of Dominion, and several of the available outcomes of the Runic Invocation. So you're definitely going to get to play the way that you want, and you're going to base that on how you decide to build your build. I assume that a lot of people will be trying the RUNEMASTER. I'll be curious as to how many people are playing it the same way. Granted that once a guide comes out, I'm sure a lot of people will follow that, but it sounds like a lot of people are going to be able to play it, and everyone's going to be coming out with something different, which means that everyone's going to be able to play it the way they want. I really like it when you have those kind of options and depth to a class. So let's talk about the Runic Invocation. So the RUNEMASTER's mastery skill gained the moment you gain your mastery is the Runic Invocation, and it's the very heart of the class. By invoking Runic Invocation with any number of runes generated from your elemental abilities that you've been using, the Runic Invocation will consume the current runes to cast one of its 40 corresponding invocations, and again, that's going to completely depend on which ones you've generated by using whichever elements in whichever order you chose. So if you generate 3 raw fire runes and unleash Argon's Greater Fireball, creating a massive fiery explosion dealing fire damage and applying spreading flames to all enemies hit in a large area. Or by generating Ra, Ga, and Hio, fire, lightning, then cold, you can invoke the antipod of Mesabrea, and I apologize for just absolutely annihilating a bunch of these names, but I am a horrible pronouncer of names I do not know. A rune stone will destabilize over time, eventually pulling in surrounding enemies, followed by a massive explosion. Or perhaps a more defensive move is in order. Generate a Hio, Ra, Hio, cold, fire, then cold, and surround yourself in an explosive shell of regenerating ward with Rion's Frostguard. And then below you can see a bunch of these in action, and you can just tell that depending on how you want to play, there are plenty of options. So it's going to be fun seeing which way everyone decides to go and finding out, you know, of course, min-maxing which one's going to really work out the best. Of course, with the new mastery, it means that there's going to be some new skills as well. The first one we're going to talk about is Flame Rush. Flame Rush adds a new transversal ability to the Mage's Toolkit. It's available to all the masteries via the RUNEMASTER passive tree, which means you'll have to put a few points into the RUNEMASTER tree, even if you're the other masteries, to be able to use it. Flame Rush turns you into a hurling ball of fire, gaining damage reduction and exploding at the end of the movement. To channel the ability to its fullest, and you'll gain up to 150% increased area and damage when you release the ability. The key word there that I saw was increased. I always hope for a more, but hopefully there'll be some other skill nodes inside of that tree that we'll be able to get some damage out of. As a RUNEMASTER, you will generate runes while channeling abilities, making you ready for the next invocation once you arrive at your destination. Flame Rush can also be specialized to automatically trigger your invocation at the end of the transversal for a very impactful arrival. Flame Rush can also be converted to either lightning or cold, matching the elements you need for your build and giving the RUNEMASTER greater control over your rune generation. And here you can see it in action. It looks like it's going to be a really smooth transversal skill that can also line you up to use your next ability or have an ability proc at the end of it, or both. So I really think that it's going to feel really good in game. I can't wait to get my hands on it. You can also see the runes. I like the way that they're above your character, so you can see which 3 you have active, and you can see that they are using all fire in this example. Next we have the Frost Wall. Frost Wall is the second ability you can unlock in the RUNEMASTER tree, and alongside Flame Rush will be available to all mage masteries should they choose to invest some points into the RUNEMASTER tree. Frost Wall erects a sheet of chilling winds, freezing and dealing cold damage over time to enemies which cross it. With Frost Wall, we aim to reinforce the RUNEMASTER's ability to control enemies and aid allies with thoughtful positioning. And I really like that idea, that aspect going into fights, of being able to not only control mobs, but protect yourself depending on how you use the ability and how you position it to protect yourself or to control the enemies. So that's going to be very important, and it's really going to come down to having a little bit more skill into the build itself and not just rely on the skill, you know, stat stick on your gear and stuff or how you spec it, but also just how you manually cast it and how you use it in battle. I really like that aspect. Frostwall can be further specialized to apply beneficial effects to allies or even to other spells passing through them. You can also convert Frostwall to either fire or lightning to match your elemental style and provide their own positive effects such as more damage over time. Frostwall offers extensive ways to control enemies and provide great payoffs for how you position it. Now I really like the wording they use there. for the spells that pass through it, which means that you can create the wall and then use another skill behind it that goes through the wall and then hits enemies, and you can buff that or possibly do other things to that spell itself, which I'm assuming, you know, increase its damage or do something that's going to make it kill the mobs or do something more, which is really a cool aspect of having skills not only synergize inside of their skill trees, but having them synergize when you actually use them and have them pass through in the game itself. Pretty cool. Can't wait to test that out and play with it and see how well it works. We have the Rune Bolt. The Rune Bolt is the Rune Master's bread and butter spell. Rune Bolt allows you to steadily fire piercing projectiles of cold, fire, and lightning, rotating through the elements. We wanted to offer all Rune Masters a skill which was easy to get into and fill the role of something that was spammable. With a low mana cost, ability to generate resources, and ability to generate all rune types, Rune Bolt provides a go-to ability for the Rune Master. Now, the main thing that I really like that they said here is that you can steadily fire it. It's very spammable, and that it has piercing projectiles, which is going to make it feel really good. When you play the mage and you have like fireball or lightning blast right off the bat, they don't pierce and they don't have multiple projectiles right off the bat. You have to really kind of build into it to get that, and they can feel really slow, especially if there's a little bit of mob density early in the game. You have to sit there and try and kill them individually instead of just being able to spam something to take them all. Now, I don't know how early you're going to get the Rune Bolt, but if it is very early on, it's going to feel really good leveling with it. I can already see that just because it's piercing and has projectiles, multiple. And then you can see down below that it looks like it has 3 projectiles. Granted, I don't know if they built into it at all, but it's also piercing, which is going to be really nice for just clearing out tons of trash mobs and not having to individually kill them with like one fireball at a time. Within the Rune Bolt's tree, you can modify the ability to focus on its own projectiles, adding additional projectiles, making them home in on enemies, and even explode on contact, dealing area damage. Alternatively, specialize Rune Bolt's ability to generate ruins and resources to make it a supporting skill for a larger build setup. Rune Bolt gives the Rune Master many ways to control the flow of combat. So it looks like it's going to be a very flexible skill that you can use either way that you choose to. And then lastly, we have the Glyph of Dominion. The final skill unlocked as a Rune Master is the Glyph of Dominion, placing a growing rune on the ground, dealing damage over time, culminating in a large explosion, dealing damage to all enemies within it. Glyph of Dominion allows you to punish enemy positioning. With Glyph of Dominion, we wanted to focus on an aerial denial aspect of the Rune Master. To accomplish this, the Glyph of Dominion can be specialized into taking greater advantage of enemies within it, dealing more damage to enemies that have shredded armor or are slowed, adding a chance to stun enemies each second that they're within it. You can also specialize to make Glyph of Dominion a haven for yourself and allies, offering defensive benefits such as ward generation, resistances, and even additional cast and attack speed, area effect, while being dangerous for the enemies that come into it. The goal for this ability is for the Rune Master to be able to take advantage of enemies' positioning or empowering their own position. With the Runes of Disintegration node, you can also generate ward per second and gain more damage to disintegrate for those wanting some more laser beam action. So it sounds like the skill tree is going to have plenty of options. You're going to be able to play defensive, offensively with it, help your allies. So it's going to have quite a few different ways to spec into it, and I'm curious to see how that synergizes well with the other skills, including your invocation that you do. So another skill that's going to be a fun one to play around with. And then of course there will be one more skill. There'll be a new mage skill for all of them, and they're extremely excited to let us know about that tomorrow, so we'll cover that after it comes out. But for now, I'm pretty hyped for the Rune Master. I like the skills. It seems like it's going to be a very fun play style. A lot of, not necessarily so much depth, but a lot of diversity in it. But we'll get to see how many layers are really into it when we start playing with it. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. Let me know what you guys think about it. If you think you're going to enjoy it or not, if you're going to play it or not on the patch, in the comments below. As always, stay safe, travelers.